Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me now Mr. Phillip Ebanks, who is one of the independent candidates seeking to represent the constituency of Red Bay in our upcoming general elections. Mr. Ebanks, even though you have been on Radio Cayman before, you've been exposed to the public. You also been, on your commuters and having your community meetings and stuff like that. I think it is still important for you to introduce yourself because we may just have some new listeners or new persons who are just watching it as well. So tell us about yourself and what inspired you to become a candidate in this.
Thanks a lot, OC, for having me on the show. And, of course, a big good afternoon to all the people over in Red Bay and in the Cayman Islands. And thanks so much for the opportunity to be here and to run for Red Bay as an MP. I really appreciate all the kind words that have been said to me. And obviously, as I've indicated before, I have the last 20 years of my career has been as an attorney, and then before that I had 20 years in public service, 18 years or thereabouts in the police department. So this kind of meld of experience, I believe, places me in a position where I really understand service and community service. I've lived in Red Bay for the last 30 years. The last 15 years I've been in my current location. But before that, we were in different locations. It was at Whirlwind at one point and then Victory at another point. So I do understand the issues of Red Bay. And as we go around and we continue our canvassing, it is clear that Red Bayers really are looking for a change. You'll hear other people come out of left of center now and say, oh, they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And you really have to think back on a simple proposition, which is this. Some of these people have been effectively behind the power behind the MP before and been his assistant and so on and so forth. And you would have thought that given that background that, they would have been able to step up to the plate and do some of these things, make sure that the speed bumps are sorted out, make sure that the traffic lighting is in good shape, make sure that the roads are paved and drainage is done. But no, they haven't done so, and now we come around to what I call, this is election season, and some people say it's called silly season, because all of a sudden people are coming out of the woodworks with their programs and saying what they propose to do. But at least in one case, we've had the same MP for Progressives for the last 12 years, and he's solidly been, as far as I can see, Mr. Tatum has been his right-hand man for the last 12 years. So here we are, but the promises are being made. I think, though, that Red Bears are seeing through it, and, I think it's a bit too late for many of the voters there. Many of the voters want a change, and they're really looking forward to a change. And I think we will have a change in Red Bay, and we will have a fresh start. We will have a constituency office, and I want to just kind of reflect on that for a minute, OC, because if you think about the sum of money that's been paid towards our constituency, which is $60,000 per year, over the last 8 years, that's $480,000 that have been paid for that particular purpose, and there's no constituency office. And of course, when they set this up, the politicians haven't done us right, because you don't. They put the provisions that you don't have to account for that money, and it's not so funny that you're getting money in and you're not accounting for it. And you don't have to account for it, so nobody can ever make an argument that you should account for it, even though the ethical thing to do would be to account for it anyway. So it's those things that really bother myself and the people of Red Bay. As I've gone through and I've canvassed, there are other things too that appear to be really important. Red Bay is a proud little constituency. People seem to want to really look after the upkeep and the way things are, and your curb image and so on and so forth in the district. And of course, Clearly, one of the things that we do need there is some better sort of community regulations. Some of that is covered already in the environmental health law, but I think we need to pull. We'll have to pull more of that together to make sure that you have sort of be able to properly regulate exactly how the curbside should look. What kind of garbage container should be there, to make sure that lighting and issues of how people's roadside, deportment of their property is, because it's a nice district, and everybody's property and property values are important to everybody, and there is a real emphasis, as you see the community groups, they're concerned about it, and when I say I'm elected, I'm going to make sure to champion those, to ensure that those regulations go in, meaningful regulations that help to make sure that the community is beautified and kept beautified as we go along. That'll be one of my emphasis within Red Bay.
There was a pilot project in relation to garbage and specialized garbage containers, but I believe that was in your neighboring constituency that was adopted. Was that in Prospect or in parts of Red Bay as well, where there were industry-specific garbage containers?
Sort of separation of
yes,
different types of waste. Yes, there was one ongoing there in the vicinity of Hurley's for a while.
No, this was a program actually that was introduced by the representative there and the DEH in relation to certain types of garbage containers that could be picked up by the garbage trucks, and but it was a pilot project, so obviously it wasn't in Red Bay. I believe it may have been in Prospect instead of Red Bay, but some concern by some of your other opponents in the upcoming election, if I want to use that word. Can't find a better word at the moment for it. Concerns about gated communities cropping up in the constituency, and they feel that you need to be, more as a collective, as opposed to certain people segregating themselves by having gated communities. It almost brings that, us and them feeling and mentality. You have any views on that?
There's always that. There's always that us and them. However, I want to basically reflect that as from my knowledge and what I understand, much of the sort of the gated, the veering towards gatedness, so to speak, has come about because of real security concerns, and when you have security concerns, and as you evolve with those security concerns, and people do put up gates and fences, yes, it takes away from the openness of the community, but it also assists in containing the safety and security element. And so here we are. We have some communities that have gates and some that don't. I wouldn't encourage a further erosion into that, but at the same time, we are where we are in terms of the gated communities that we do have, and of course that takes away some of the pressure from the police in terms of having to police those areas, which means that the police resources can probably be better used in other areas where they're more needed. So there's pros and cons to it, and but I certainly agree that having gated communities within communities doesn't help with the sort of inclusiveness. And yes, and I certainly openly encourage us to be as open as possible. Yes.
Now, also one of the issues facing your constituency has to do with the flow of traffic, the ability to get in and out of Red Bay, more so getting out than getting in.
Yes. Yes.
Do you have any views, on that, and what the remedy may be? We know that you, like you said earlier, spent several years with the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service. Right. I'm not sure whether or not you had been in charge of traffic division.
Yeah, spent a
period of time.
Quite a while as in charge of traffic, like you said, and clearly traffic is something that is we have a quite a high density of cars now, and if you look at the traffic flow, clearly along the whole Red Bay stretch of Shamrock, it is a very high density area. You know, cars are coming in, particularly in the morning, are coming very, very, bottlenecking coming from the eastern districts, and then in the evening it's in the other direction. So where we are now is that there are some roadworks that are in the works in the two roundabouts. There, one at Hurley's and the other one at the King's Gym area, and those will make an improvement on where we are now. But the longer term issue is going to be one that we need to look after. In particular, I was hearing one of the other persons saying that they thought that that they would reduce cars and restrict cars and then go into public transport. Well, my view would be to do it the other way around, is that we need to put the chicken in front of the egg. We need to put in the public transport system first and make sure that that gets up and running. And then we can kind of squeeze in on the edges of how we attack reducing cars and traffic on the road. And there's a number of ways of doing that. One way of doing that would be like they've done in other areas. You could have a kind of firstly, you could make sure that you have priority lanes for the buses, right? So that the buses go through, and then you could also have a kind of a sun pass system too, that you actually have a higher sort of toll pass at certain times of the day for cars, and in that way people would, we use the roads and we use them like they are absolutely free, but if we think of the road as a resource that is there, that needs to be paid for, it's only a limited amount of it, and we do the sort of sun pass system, and in that way, that if you're there on the road early in the morning during peak hour traffic, you are likely to be charged a little bit more than not being on the road. It might make particularly some businesses are out there that are traveling up and down, right? I think it would make business people also who are doing business type of traffic think more carefully about when they're using the road. You also see things like, for example, sometimes you see backhoes on the road early in the morning, and all of those things we could tighten down on to make sure that that we kind of reduce the traffic flow. Certainly busing and school busing is an excellent idea. It's been around for a while. Staggered hours is another great idea. But I think the long-term solution for us is really going to come when we actually look at what we can do towards opening up the land to the east, in the east to west road that's going to go in, because that's going to represent two things for us, or three things rather. It's going to open up additional land for housing.
Okay.
And we need housing. We can see that a big part of the problem with the cost of housing is that the lack of stock. There's not enough stock there. We got to put in additional housing. So that road is going to represent an opportunity for additional housing. It's also going to represent an opportunity for additional business and amenities to go in. As I mentioned in the chamber debate, I thought that certainly a courthouse in that area, as well as other services in that area and a high school. We talk about high school. Those are the type of things that in that area will help to kind of bring a community and a real business element to that side of the island, say the Bordentown side of the island, that will allow for traffic that's coming in from the eastern districts to have other options on how to get to essential services. And so I think that at the end of the day, that's going to be probably one of the biggest things that's going to help us with traffic congestion. Because when traffic doesn't have to come into town, that's going to be the major element there. But all these things work together. You know, we need to look at the low-hanging fruit, as I say, which would be ensuring that we do things, all the things that we can do. During COVID, we had this more staggered hours and that type of thing. And we need to kind of put a little bit of pressure on that, get the business community behind us, get government. Government should be leading on these things, right? To be the first stage adopters of these things so that we can go forward. Yes.
Okay. One of our listeners asked the question as to why decide to run in Red Bay when you're also well known in West Bay.
Oh yes, that's $1 million question, really. You know, how many people have come up to me and said, "Well, why don't you work? Why you not in West Bay? You'd be a shore in. You'd be a shore in." And the fact of the matter is this: that I've lived in Red Bay for the last 30 years of my life. Like many Red Bears, I don't think there's not that kind of almost, shall we say, original population. Red Bay is the kind of district where most people have moved.
They were transplanted.
Yeah,
there. Yes,
you know,
transplants.
there's a lot of new Caymanians there, of all different nationalities. There's a lot of people who lived. Believe it or not, as I go into homes, people, the Mandersons are down from West Bay originally, and they know who I am. They know my mother. And my mother lived there, my sisters lived there, and of course my sisters have now moved on to other districts. But yes, there's something, when where you're born and where you buck your toe. There's something about that, but there's also something very special about where you actually now call home. And when you think about home, OC, when you travel abroad and you think back about the things that are important to you, and you remember your bed, and where's your bed, and that's where you think, and where's your family right now, and that's where you think of home. And Red Bay is home for me. I love Red Bay. I love the people. A lot of very good vibes. A lot of disappointment that over the last 8 to 12 years that they haven't seen their MP, but I promised them that this is going to be different with me. I have a track record for being committed to what I do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to use every bit of energy and expertise that I have to make sure I do the very best job in Red Bay, to bring Red Bay have it into the kind of district where everybody can be proud and pleased to live.
One of the signature projects for Red Bay, or that one that had been certainly on the agenda and everyone's talking point, has to do with the Ada Sanchez Memorial Park.
Yes.
Do you have a view on that? Where is it? We heard another candidate said they want to create more open space in the constituency. There are several public open spaces that are there as a result of the development, having to require them to be there as a part of the development, and they would like to develop those. Where do you believe the Ada Sanchez Park is in terms of its contribution to the constituency and any other things that can help as well?
Yes, certainly a very good question. Certainly, Ada Sanchez Park was started back about 8 years ago. So it's been sort of two different sets of governments that have kind of brought it to where it is right now. As you look at it, one of the things that I notice, and it's kind of one of these things that I've seen as a common element of all the parks, there's no shade. These things are wide open. And you talk about developing something so that kids and people, maybe elderly people, can come. If you go to any Central and South American country, they have a town square, okay? And in there, they have taken, it's very basic, right? But they have a few benches, and then they have some shade trees or some shades of some sort. And so when we start talking about parks and talking about government parks, yes, let's do one properly first, please, before we go and spend more money on additional parks. I'm not saying that they're not needed, but I'm also saying that let's make them ensure that the parks are, attractive, and that they have certain little amenities. I think the kids bars that they recently put there are good. They need toilets in that there, and then it also seems to me that you may need some fencing there, because what happens when during the late night and evening hours and stuff, then the park gets, people go there and they abuse it.
Okay.
And so we need to do the park. We need to really finish it, really. It seems to me there that even things like walkway around the park to make sure that the two adjoining roads have good access to it. There's things to be done there. And instead of running off and jumping off and saying, let's do a fresh one somewhere else, let's look at doing this one and finishing it and make sure it's done properly. There are parks here in Cayman that the government have done that they sit vacant.
Yeah.
They sit vacant, and then you look around and you say, wow, we spent a lot of money there, but they're not used. Let's make sure that we do this one and that we can see utility in it. We can see it's being used before we go off and do something else. That's my view.
Okay. Rainy seasons are coming up. Rainy season is coming up. I believe that there are some parts in that constituency that are subject to flooding.
Yes.
As well. I have a friend who lives on Selkirk Drive, and when we had those continuous rains, there were some portions of her yard where water was more than knee deep.
Yes.
In there as well. Have you seen any movement to address the flooding situation, or do you have any solutions that you would offer as to how to deal with it?
Well, let's be fair. Red Bay is low-lying.
Right.
Okay. So let's be absolutely clear about that. And if you look at Red Bay where it's on the map, it's kind of it has ocean on both sides, right? You have the North Sound on one side, and then you have the south side, South Sound water on the other side. So it is not an easy fix. That said, it seems that there has been, and I think Miss Turner was instrumental in doing some additional pumps and lift stations in the Prospect area, which seem to have had a good result. So certainly, I think that was kind of a pilot plan, and obviously, if I'm elected, I'll be looking to make sure that we bring some relief to Red Bay as well. Beyond that, it seems to me that there's other things that we need to look at. One of the things that you see is that particularly with the school children and getting to buses and so on and so forth, they're really it's a real dilemma. Some kids are wading through, knee deep in water, and so what strikes me there is this: the buses don't appear to have a designated spot to stop, so they stop all over the place. So how do you fix that you can say, hey, listen, at least there's a clear spot for kids to wait for the bus? You've got to designate spaces and spots for the school buses to stop. So we need to put in school bus stops so that kids can, if it's even the mom is dropping them to that spot because the water is high, then they have a drop spot and a collection spot for the bus. So that's the type of thing that I think that is going to make a difference, and I'd press for that type of thing. It's organizing things, There's some things you can't fix in the sense of, can you drain the whole of Red Bay and the whole of Prospect? No, you can't. But you can be creative in ensuring that there's spots there that people will have an opportunity. The kids will have an opportunity, safe opportunity to catch the bus.
Now, in your former one of your former careers, you Royal Cayman Islands Police Service that we mentioned earlier, being in charge of the traffic division.
That's correct. Yes.
As well. Some people have complained about the absence of speed bumps in the area. Now, there are people who argue against,
of course,
speed bumps, and then there are those who advocate for them. Do you have a position on that, or any advice that you would give in terms of the proper use of speed bumps? One of the things that I have noticed is that if the speed bumps are there is not necessarily any advance notification that they are there. Some instances, there may be a speed bump sign right adjacent to the
Yes.
speed bump. That is rare. And one wonders whether or not the authorities are seeking to punish those persons who speed by not alerting them to it. But as we've seen in the past, it can cause serious accidents as well. So
Damage to
your
vehicles.
advice as a a person who as a traffic specialist, your advice on that.
Sure. Obviously, advanced signage is important on everything that we do. You're not going to go into a change of a speed zone unless you got a speed zone sign. And certainly, advanced notice of speed bumps is an important a roadside sign there. And also the marking of the speed bump itself. You see that in many places they have a different coloration to kind of give you an indication that the speed bump is coming up, so you can see. In terms of my view on speed bumps, clearly in those residential areas, one of the things that you hear from people in Red Bay is that, hey, I'm scared to go out and take my kid out on the road for a little walk in the evening because the cars are coming along at a crazy speed. And that's not right. People need the opportunity to raise their families in their neighborhoods and to walk the roads and to do the thing, exercise on the roadsides as conveniently and safely as possible. So I'm totally for ensuring that speed bumps are there. We need speed bumps in conjunction with a bit more vigilance on the police end as well, and we'll keep pressing on those things. Police can't be everywhere all the time, and a speed bump is often called a sleeping policeman, right?
Yep.
So it's one of those things that's a backup. It's not ideal because cars can get damaged, but given the amount of traffic on the road and the need for safety and security for
if you had
people
to choose between damages, you prefer the car rather than the human.
I would think so. Yes.
So the person who posed the question about why not run in West Bay as opposed to Red Bay, they said that your late uncle would be quite proud of you.
Thanks.
Okay, and then they want to hold your feet to the fire. They want to know whether or not school buses should be air conditioned. The heat is why many parents don't send their kids on the buses.
Wow, it's an interesting question because I hadn't heard that was a reason why, and I suspect that there are various reasons why they don't travel on the bus, but certainly doing everything that we can to ensure that the buses are safe and comfortable and organized. And when I say safe, I mean, some parents are kind of concerned about safety of children on buses, which I don't know that that's fully justified, but it is a feeling. And so, yeah, absolutely, everything that is going to make buses put to full use would be certainly something that I would be in support of.
Okay. I have one more question for you because I want to give you, I think we're going to end at 1:57. Paul, is when I come to you. This is a question here, and says, is it really the situation that members of parliament are getting an allowance of $5,000 per month for a constituency office, whether they have one or not? Please say that is not the case. If it is, then just look at all those dishonest politicians that have been receiving this and not establishing the office. Please do not vote them in again. I have to do some research. I know I've questioned it before, and you may know more about it. I think they're given a certain amount to use, but not. It isn't earmarked specifically for constituents or office, because we have seen in some instances where a party will share a constituency office for all of their party members, but they are given this money that is almost like discretionary spending, I believe.
Yes, I think that's absolutely correct. But, I look at it from this perspective, that it is money that is given to you specifically as the MP of your constituency.
Yeah.
And therein lies the issue. Certainly, I got to take my hat off to Ms. Turner. she's put her constituency office, albeit it's actually on the Red Bay side of. It's not in Prospect.
Oh, okay. So you can claim it then.
But hey, guess what? It's ready. It's there. It's identified. People know where it is. And to me, that's the issue. Is that there should be this space. Red Bay House is what I would call it, where you can go and you can say, that's not whether I support this MP or I don't support this MP, whether I like him or I don't like him. This is my constituency office. I need a little bit of help on something, be directed to the proper services. I'm not going to have to go in somebody's backyard or somebody's pool house or something to get the service. And so that's where I come from, and that's the way I look at it, and that's why I want to have a constituency office in Red Bay.
Okay, I want to give you an opportunity for some closing comments as well, Mr. Ebanks.
Sure.
We had a good conversation, excellent conversation this afternoon, covered many points, as well. And I must say, you handle them, quite well, succinctly also, so which allows you to move on to talk about so many things.
Yes, certainly. The first thing I'd like to say again is thank God for really blessing me. I feel to be at this space at this time. That people have always asked me about why and why I'm running, and I keep coming back to it. That I've prayed about it. I've asked God's guidance on this, and now I'm here, and it seems to me the logical thing to say is that if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? 61 years old, I have my experience. I've been a faithful individual to my careers and the people who've employed me all along, and this is a logical movement on towards serving the people of Red Bay and the people of the Cayman Islands. I also wanted to take this opportunity, of course, to invite those who may be able to come out to our meeting on the 29th, which is Saturday, at the Sailing Club at 7 p.m. We're going to have a meeting there. It's going to be sort of informal type setting. I'll speak for a few minutes, and then I'll give people an opportunity to ask me questions. And I look forward to seeing you come out. Many people have responded. So, it's a Sailing Club. It's 7 p.m. on Saturday the 29th of March, and I look forward to the opportunity to.
That's tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, actually.
That's correct. That's correct. This is the thing, OC, is that the days just kind of
lose track, right?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I want to wish you all the best, Mr. Ebanks, and look forward to having, more of these conversations, with you as well. And I'm sure that the people of your constituency, they appreciate your honesty. You're being transparent and being forthright in terms of your answers and from the questions that have been asked of you. Folks, I'm going to throw it back over to the control room. When we return, the phone lines will be open, so all of you budding candidates out there who are looking forward to running in that would be 2029
yes.
general elections. You can start your campaign from now. You can start calling in and talking about the things that concern you and what you would do in 2029 as well. Don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. Talk today. We'll be back shortly.